managers are also having to step up their game, and they may not be prepared to do that and they just may not know what to do, because leaders are people too, and they get tired, and they don't want to take a step. You mentioned ThoughtWorks, and I remember one of our first meetings together. You and I were meeting in St. Louis, Missouri, at the site where Michael Brown was shot and killed by the police. That seems like eons ago, but that same backdrop still exists today. And what's encouraging is a lot of organizations have come out and they've taken a stand. They've made a statement saying that they are advocating and supporting. But now, what do those leaders do? I mean, what do the organizations do beyond just making that public statement against racism? Do you have any insight into what people can do to go forward and take that next step?
I do, and I'm so happy you asked that question, because there were so many companies making a public statement. But now I think about what happens after that. Right now, it's time for you to actually put your money where your mouth is. And that's going to look very different for each organization. And it really depends on where they are at in their diversity and inclusion journey. I'll tell you what we did at ThoughtWorks, and then offer some suggestions. I like to call it the week that the world was on fire. So that weekend, I sent an email to our leadership team, just sharing a bit more about my feelings about what was happening. That I was heartbroken, that I realized that we needed to address the situation, and it was a way for me to, in many ways, vent and share, so that I could be in a position to be able to support our employees that next day. So that Monday, we simply gave space to our employees who identified as Black. We gave them the space to come together, to connect, to support, to cry, to vent. And then we had a company-wide session where we did the same thing. And we probably had close to 120 employees join. And it was very cathartic in many ways to hear from people. We did the same thing that Tuesday. On Wednesday, we had a representative from our employee assistance program come out and lead a session, because we recognize that people may need some additional support, whether that was counseling or other support. And then that Thursday, we got together and we did a group brainstorming session about what are some things that we could do both individually and collectively as an organization to start to impact some positive social change. We've also had discussions about Juneteenth. So coming out of that brainstorming session, we formed a racial justice working group. And all of the ideas that were collected from that session, that group looked at them, they grouped them by themes. We sent out the information to our employees to vote on the top 2 or 3 things in each of those categories that we should start working on. And we're in the process of doing that work. One of the suggestions was an internship program that focused on Black and Brown students. So again, we're in the process of building the framework for that internship program. We have done a 15-day allyship challenge. We've completed a 15-day racial justice challenge. We're establishing relationships with historically Black colleges and universities. And so there's a lot that's going on. And I know that for every employer, particularly the small ones, you may not be able to do that. And so what you can do is make diversity and inclusion a priority. Whatever you do, be authentic, be transparent, be vulnerable. Tell your employees you don't have all of the answers. And but guess what? No one does. You know, it's fine to say that we could probably do better as an organization. ThoughtWorks could do better as an organization. I think all organizations can do better, but be committed to figuring out um, how you can improve things within your organization. And then you have to commit to being there for the long haul. You know, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, but really unlike a marathon, there isn't a finish line. There is no end state. It's ongoing. You can only continue to get better. And then either hire a D&I consultant, you know, hire a head of diversity and inclusion, or have someone within your organization focus on D&I, because without that, without the intent, you probably aren't going to obtain any long-term success and meet any of your goals. And then, you know, don't remain silent. You know, employees, candidates, customers, clients, they are all paying attention. They're all asking about, what are your diversity and inclusion efforts? What are you doing in this space? And you have to be prepared. In fact, McKinsey released a study a couple of weeks ago that said um, when candidates perceive a lack of inclusion, they are walking away from job offers right now. So 50% of the candidates who identify as LGBTQ plus, I think it was 45% who identified as a race or ethnic minority, and 39% overall walked away just because of the lack of, perceived inclusion. So this stuff is really important.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Even when a job description, you may not even get to interview a candidate, because if they read your job description and it's not inclusive, people will opt out of even applying to the job because they don't think, hey, I'll never meet those requirements. And so I think having a focus on that inclusion part is so critical.